Welcome, everybody, to the April meeting of the Inland Coalition on Aging. The Inland Coalition on Aging, where we are focusing on aging well in the Inland Empire for people with disabilities, for older adults, and caregivers. If that is your focus, if that is your passion, if that is who you serve, if that is who you are, welcome, you're in the right place.
We
We're going to go
are.
ahead and get started. It is 11:02, and my name is Dr. Ben Howdige. I'm the founding board chair of the Inland Coalition on Aging. I get the privilege of welcoming you today and facilitating the meeting. But there's lots of folks behind the scene, and I just want to thank really quick Inland Caregiver Resource Center for all their assistance in helping us to ensure that these meetings happen monthly. Thank you to the Janelli and Carmen and all the staff at Inland Caregiver Resource Centers for your support of the coalition, of everybody, all of us who are part of this coalition. Today on the agenda, we have key points from the last meeting. We always like to talk about what we talked about last month to carry over, because a lot of these topics, there's a lot of intersection, right? Intersect between topics. And so we'd like to run over the key points from the last meeting. After that, I'm going to hand it over to Carmen Estrada. She's the executive director of Inland Caregiver Resource Center, and she's going to give us some updates on the Master Plan for Aging, Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging. We're so excited. We're getting close to launching the Inland Empire Master Plan for Aging. And it's been a 3-year process. And all of you know who've been with us for a while, it's been 3 years in the making, but we're getting very close to launching it. And this is just the beginning, right? After we launch this plan or release the blueprint, it is now on us, the agencies, to carry on the work. And so very exciting work coming up soon. And then we have a presenter, very excited to have a presenter here with us today to Ernie Reguly. Hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, Ernie, from Riverside Legal Aid, and he's going to tell us more about the services, and then we'll talk more about next steps. All right, I already introduced myself. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you, Dakota. I see you joined. Thank you for joining us. Derek and Daniel, Edith, thank you for joining us. All right, last month we had a fantastic presentation by Nisha Elliott. She's with Riverside University Health Systems Behavioral Health on the topic of trauma-informed care. Very important topic to understand, to communicate, and to share with others, especially those that we work around us. You know, our folks. One thing that comes to mind when I think of trauma-informed care is how we over-assess people. We assess them, the in-home support services assessing them, the doctors assessing them, the specialists assessing them, your organization is doing assessments, and people just have to repeat their story over and over again. And what we don't realize is that could be um, trigger a trauma. And so we want to be mindful of that, understand what trauma-informed care is. Some of the key talking points from last month is why we need to know about this. Well, understanding trauma-informed care improves consumer engagement, health outcome, wellness, and other things. This is applicable to clients, consumers, members, folks that we serve, patients. She talked about 6 core guiding principles such as cultural humility, and equity, safety, and stability. You know, cultural humility may seem like a new word to folks. It's been around for a while, many years. Basically, just means, you know, I don't know everything. And I am okay with admitting that. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm going to continue to learn about cultural things and other things, and that's okay. And that's how we learn and grow and provide better services throughout the years. She also talked about how important it is to know your biases, be willing to learn and listen, and start implementing trauma-informed care skills now. Hopefully, it was helpful to you. Thank you for those that joined us last month. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to our treasurer, our board member and treasurer, ICA treasurer, Carmen Estrada, for an Inland Empire MPA update. Thank you, Carmen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm sharing some updates on the development of the master plan. We are still looking for partners. I believe this is the last week we will be accepting partner forms. to be listed in the master plan for aging. However, you can still continue to partner with us even after that deadline, because the work is only going to begin after the launch. The launch is going to be on June 24th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So stay tuned for that invite. It is going to be a virtual launch. We will share the final product of the master plan for aging. In addition to that, we will be sending out our annual Inland Coalition on Aging survey to all members that we encourage you to fill out. Has some demographic questions that we would like to compile to see if there's any gaps that we need to focus on as a coalition. So please, if you get that survey, fill it out. Lastly, we continue to do our Inland Empire Master Plan on Aging awareness live streams on YouTube. The next one is next Tuesday on the 29th, where we will be talking about, I believe it's ableism. So please join us in those discussions. If you've missed any of our live streams or any of the Inland Coalition on Aging meetings, please visit our website and you will find those recordings there. Next slide, please. In addition to the development of the master plan, as you know, there's a lot going on right now when it comes to advocacy. Just yesterday, Ben was at a rally up in Calvert's district, voicing how we need to stop those cuts to Medi-Cal and Medicaid. We will be continuing to send out some of these notices, and we encourage you to join. We also are going to be participating in Advocacy Day, Senior Advocacy Day on May 7th. If you're interested in joining the effort, send us an email so that you can join us as we meet with several legislators. We already have several meetings lined up. We need your support to share stories and to voice your concerns to our legislators with everything that's going on right now. Additionally, on our website, you will find our marketing tools. If you want to share information about the coalition or the development of the master plan, there are some tools online on our website that you can access. And once again, please follow us on LinkedIn, where we post a lot of updates throughout the months, and where you'll also learn about when the launch will be. So those are the updates for the IEMPA. If you have any questions, please send us an email at info@inlandaging.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Very exciting to hear all the work that the coalition has been doing, and thank you, Carmen, for leading those efforts. You know, this coalition is community, and it takes every single one of us to do the work that we're doing. I don't do this work. You know, Carmen doesn't do this work. You, our members, our coalition members, do all this work, and so we're excited to see some new folks. We're excited to see those folks who have returned from past meetings. And if you're new today, I just want to say there's a place for you. We need your input. We need your support. And I welcome any emails to info@inlandaging.org. If you're wondering, how do I fit into all of this? You fit into all of this, and then we're going to find a way. We're going to find where you fit and what expertise you bring to the table and how we can work together. So thank you. Send me an email, info@inlandaging.org. Next, we have Ernie Reguly. He's the Deputy Director with Riverside Legal Aid. Excited to have Ernie. He's been a longtime member of this coalition, been with us every single month. Appreciate your partnership, Ernie. Please, let's give him a warm virtual welcome. A round of applause to Ernie. Take it away, Ernie.
Okay, so I have to say, when I got the email, they said, "Hey, talk about senior legal issues," and I'm like, "Oh my God," because ultimately, that was horribly non-specific. Because a lot of the legal issues that our seniors face that we see are intermixed with the facts. As I say often, nothing is linear. It's kind of like the waft and the weave of cloth. So. I winged it. Hopefully, I get something that's helpful. So, as been said, I'm the deputy director of Riverside Legal Aid. At my foundation, I'm a low-income housing advocate. My principal role is we need more housing for seniors. I think we all know we don't have enough affordable housing, and we certainly don't have enough affordable housing for seniors. I am also on the Riverside County Elder Abuse Forensic Center, and I work on a regular basis with APS. So I see the spectrum from the start to the finish, and we see the worst. So we try to reverse engineer things so our clients don't get there. I mean, I think also at my core, I don't like bad people or mean people. Um, so that's what sort of motivates me, because we have a lot of folks that just aren't kind, and that's how we get a lot of issues. Now I have to admit, I'm a year away from being a client of APS, and I haven't figured out, Janelli, how do I move these slides? Or can I just say next? Okay,
Yeah,
there
just
you
say
go.
next.
Perfect. So I had to sort of use my slides as well, because I added a few things. So ultimately, what is affordable housing? Well, it really is kind of what this coalition's about. It's a place for seniors to feel secure. They can store their meds and their DME. It's healthcare. It's a place to house their service and comfort animals. And we'll see in a moment, service and comfort animals are not pets, but it gets our clients into trouble all the time. It's also where they keep their life stuff, their treasures, and more and more. It's a place where every day they wonder about how they're going to pay their rent. Because one of the things, and I'll talk about it more, is that our seniors live in a world where Social Security does not keep up with, and if we go to the next slide, it does not keep up with the cost of housing, and that is a real problem. So some of the ways that our clients lose their housing, some of the ways they get into eviction trouble, and that's the biggest issue we see, but there's certainly others, and you'll see how they're intermixed, is the loss of a spouse. So when I use a client's name, it's because the client's giving me the authority to do that. We had Sandy during COVID, and they were living comfortably. They had a two-bedroom, two-bath home. She had 1,100 Social Security. He had 1,100. They were able to deal with it despite the fact that all of their life savings had been stolen. Another issue. And unfortunately, her husband died of COVID, and now she was faced with, well, his 1,100 paid the rent, her 1,100 paid everything else. So you can figure out the problem they had, and they came to us. But that is not uncommon, where loss of income through no fault of their own puts them in a very difficult situation. Now, in the case of Sandy, we had HCVs, housing choice vouchers. We were able to get her rehoused. If we were dealing with her situation right now, it would be a real challenge, because they really don't exist, and that when they're going to come to us, keeps getting pushed out. It's June or July. Earlier it was early in the year. But she would have been facing eviction. We also get folks that are facing eviction because of legitimate rent increases. Good landlords just needing to meet their property taxes or their insurance, and the rent goes up, and we've had clients that have exhausted whatever savings they had, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they can't do it. And now they're faced with an eviction through no fault of their own, but really no fault of the landlord. And I'm a practical attorney. Ultimately, if everything is in order and the client is just being evicted because they don't have enough money, there's really not much we can do. But eviction really looms large over a lot of our seniors. And then one that we saw during COVID, even during COVID, it was legal to sell your home. So we often find that we have a good landlord who realizes that the little old lady could not afford an increased rent. They cannot pay market. And when that person passes away, the kids take over, and I call it the greedy kid syndrome, because all they're interested in doing is raising the rent or selling the home, and more likely it's selling the home. So that person who really can't survive on market rent is now faced with a very challenging situation. And I will tell you, back in 2020, we had resources. We really don't. Now they're very, very limited. And then the sale of a home. And that, during COVID, we experienced that a lot where owners and we still experience it, where owners just need to sell their home for whatever reason. If it's an investor, they're coming in to raise the rent. If it's somebody wanting to buy a home, they're going to move in. But the net effect of our client is they're faced with an eviction, and it's a real challenge because, as some of you might know, the numbers that were done a few years ago, we were at 1.93% available rental housing stock in the county. That's for everything. Now, obviously, low income is a much smaller percentage of that. We have made some headway. A few years ago, we had 52,000 plus families that were underhoused or unhoused. I think the last number that came out was we're in the 20s or the low 30s. But when you think of it, that's a lot of people vying for the same homes. So if we can go to the next slide, some other ways that our folks, our seniors, find themselves in trouble is, failure to really understand the program, and that changes can and do occur. And one of the ways, short of my background, is as a military or as an Army JAG officer, I work for general officers, and you don't really walk into your general's office and say, I don't know, or I can't fix this problem. I've taken that approach to now in retirement, at least from the military, to my clients. And one of the ways you do that is you work with others. And in this particular case, where this Section 8 retiree, he actually was sent over to me from another legal services organization. And I think what we do here in this coalition, the other MDTs and coalitions, is critical, because without that cooperation, without that knowledge sharing, a lot of our clients are in a lot of trouble. They fall through the cracks. In this particular case, he was sent over. He'd already been evicted. He had a writ of possession, and the sheriff was coming in like a day. And unfortunately, on Section 8, as a lot of you know, if you were evicted on Section 8, you're subject to a 5-year ban. Now, if you're 81, as this gentleman was, and you're subject to a 5-year ban, that means after 5 years, you get on the waiting list. He probably didn't have that time. So we were able to work with the landlord, the housing authority, who I work with on a regular basis, and the firm that represented the landlord. And the short version is we undid everything. We paid his arrears. We made the eviction go away, and the gentleman is safe in his home where all of his stuff was left. Now, when he came to us, he was couch surfing on his son. And really, an 81-year-old gentleman who retired, who was a veteran, that's not where we want our seniors. And the next point with withholding rent is really how a lot of people get themselves into trouble, whether they're senior or not. But unfortunately, our baby boomers are really kind of cut and dry. And if you're not fixing something, I'm not paying you, and that's part of the deal. But the reality is that strategy, I haven't seen that strategy work very often in 30 years, and I can't see it working anymore. So it is critical that when we talk to these people, when housing, and I know I'm focusing a lot on housing, but without housing, not much else works. I mean, you don't have a place to store your meds. If you've got a hospital bed or other DME, you don't have a place to store that. So helping folks understand their problems when you're talking to them, and they're talking about, my landlord's not doing this or my landlord's not doing that. Withholding their rent, I put it in overly legal terms. It is the dumbest thing that you could ever do. Reach out for help and oftentimes the reason I do discussions like this and I speak the way I do is people don't know where to go, and they might call Ben, they might call Carmen, they might call any one of you. And ultimately, well, what do? I don't know. But at least you have resources where you can say, well, I remember this guy who went on forever about housing. Call him. And that's the way we're set up. We would much rather receive calls beforehand when they're having a problem, because where you live in this county matters. For instance, withholding your rent because of habitability issues or repairs, there are things that we can do in municipalities. If you live on county property, unincorporated land, you're kind of out there because code enforcement won't come inspect your property. So we have to handle that in a much different way. So withholding rent is one way that our baby boomers get into trouble often. And it's difficult because they don't want to reach out. Um, Failure to document the need for a caregiver. Needing a caregiver is one thing, but having your landlord understand that need is another. Because a landlord, in my past, my career's been three things. I represented developers and property investors, and then I went in the military, and then I came out and I did this. So in a prior life, I understood that, hey, wait, you have an occupancy restriction and you have this extra person. You got to get rid of them. And they're going to say, but they're a caregiver. And that may be an informal caregiver. But you need to be able to essentially document that. And people say, well, I need a live-in caregiver. I'm on IHSS, and we've recently had that. The problem is, if you have an IHSS caregiver, they shouldn't be living in your home because IHSS does not approve full-time caregivers. So if in fact you do need a caregiver and you've spoken with, and back to IHSS, I think it's 283 hours a month. So that person may spend a lot of time there, but they are not going to live there. Now, some landlords don't quite understand that if they see a caregiver come and go. And being able to communicate that with the caregiver, being able to document that, being able to show that that caregiver has another place to go is really important. And when you do need, recently we had a case where it was a 55 plus community, and the lease and the HOA rules were written in such a way that they allowed for a caregiver. It was understood, but that's a family member. Unfortunately, it ran afoul when they tried to introduce a 7-year-old little girl to that 55 plus community. There's no way they were going to, that 7-year-old little girl was not going to be considered a caregiver. Her mother was. So we had to deal with that. And that's a real challenge because they were all family members. And what we often see is families collapsing in on one another. So we have three generations trying to pay the rent to avoid those legal problems of I can't pay my rent. But when they do that and they don't do it appropriately, the landlord may take issue, especially if you're in an age-restricted community. So, coming to a legal service organization like Riverside Legal Aid or somebody else and being able to communicate with the landlord, that's important. Just like your comfort animal as opposed to your pet. My dog Pepper is part of our family. Okay. However, he's a pet. And, we don't think of them that way. But if you've gone in and done the necessary work for a comfort animal, it's relatively easy to get, or a service animal, they cease being pets. And service animals and comfort animals do not trigger the no pet clause. Now, there are restrictions on that, meaning if you have a 300-pound bull mastiff, you're gonna, and the dog tears up your home, that's a little bit of a problem. So if clients are encountering that, it's best to come talk about it before they get into problems. And generational norms, and we see that in my little old Armenian lady. That's a 30-year-old client. She was one of the first clients I helped, and she unfortunately lived in a part of LA that was Armenian at one point. And then everybody moved away, but that was her home, and that was where she was going to live. And um, my little Armenian client, I think she was hard of hearing. She certainly talked with her hands, as I often do. Um, and she didn't quite get it. And there are cultural differences. Personal space for her was right here. It didn't work well. And she was being evicted for nuisance, which is defined as interfering with the comfort, safety, or quiet enjoyment of the other residents. And I could see that. And to illustrate the problem, if I spoke to her as I'm speaking to you, she didn't get it. She didn't respond. If I yelled at her, what you would perceive as yelling, she got it. In fact, when I started yelling at her and talking with my hands, her caregiver said, "You're finally getting through to her." The problem is, when I walked out of my waiting room for the next client, everybody wanted to kill me because I'm this young lawyer beating up on this little old lady. So there are cultural differences where people don't understand. And when we get those changes in norms, everybody, I think, for instance, my wife is Peruvian. There are no residential care facilities for the elderly or nursing facilities in Peru. You take care of your family. You build another story, but it's all done in home. You have nurses come to your home. Those are generational norms that people don't quite get. And we get that a lot, and it affects and it gets people into legal problems that you wouldn't expect. And some people don't really understand it. And then just the basics. People get a summons complaint, they don't quite know what to do. And they find themselves evicted. And when they come to us and they talk to us, we're like, well, did anyone give you anything? Did you find anything on your doorstep? Oh, yeah, I got this. Well, when did you get it? Oh, a month or two ago. It's a little bit late then. And our seniors are getting the challenges, legal problems, just because of their technological challenges. Well, I need to see the summons complaint. Well, I don't have the ability to get your office. I can't fax you, and I don't know how to use my email. So really, we are challenged, particularly in evictions, because evictions are sealed to the public. Now, I and the client can obtain certain information, but I need information off of the summons and the complaint. So everything I've just talked about, it all leads to one endpoint, and that's our clients unfortunately being evicted. So if we can go to the next slide. But renters aren't the only ones that get in the problems. And we see folks, whether they're owners or renters, or they're residents in facilities and senior scams. The points on this one slide, I have given entire hour-long presentations just on this. Senior scams, I think a lot of us understand it. Our seniors, particularly in a geographically dispersed county like Riverside, we go all the way to the Arizona border. We're about 2.5 million people, and our clients are spread out. That is smaller than the population of LA. So our isolation that a lot of our seniors face or deal with, particularly in, say, in the clients that find themselves in a home they're comfortable with and the rents are low, but they don't have community. And that gives into loneliness. And so when they get a text, should they know how to use it, or an email, we find often that they succumb to romance scams. And what we do find in any one of these scams, it used to be called pig butchery. Now it's called hog butchery. And the reason it's called hog butchering is pig butchering would go after their account. Hog butchering goes after everything. And they take them down, even to the point where we've had people with $700,000 drained out of their bank account. And they're afraid, if they do have family, to mention it, or they feel that their lover, who keeps, delaying the trip, that person that really cares for them, they know how to manipulate them. They really care. And so they find themselves completely out. And then they're astonished when their lover cuts off because they have nothing left. They'll go into credit card debt, and really find themselves, they've worked their entire life, and now they have nothing. And then they become a client who is being evicted because they do not have the ability to pay. Refund scams, we've all seen them. Hey, this is Norton, and we need to give you back some money. We overcharged you, or respond to this email before we charge you an exorbitant amount. Or bank emails, click on the link. Somebody's stolen your identity. We need to verify it's you, and the bank account is drained. It's really difficult when we see folks at like the Elder Abuse Forensic Center who are facing eviction. And that really is a challenge. And one of the reasons I've gone into all of this is we get clients at EAFC where the social workers they've got a plan, and it's a 3, 4, 5, 6 month plan. And what people don't realize is when interspersed with this scam, um, they are now not paying the rent. And I have to point out the fact that, well, we may have a 6 month plan, but we need to pivot to a 60-day plan because they're not going to have a place to live because they have no money and they can't pay the rent. And that is a real challenge. And I see in the link that people, a number of people that are familiar with this. And it really, is that a linear legal problem? Maybe yes, maybe no. It certainly leads to a bunch of other problems: eviction, the inability to pay their bills, credit card debt, collections, all of that. We've seen people borrow money because of these scams. And when they can't pay, their life really starts to fold in on them. And the one that really we've seen a lot. Now, we've seen scams migrate into Riverside County. That used to be in Northern California. And I see these scams through the social workers I work with at APS. And the solar are really astonishing. The typical scam is a door knocker that says, hey, I can put solar on your roof for free and you won't have to pay electricity. Well, there's a problem. These scams are the contract is usually somewhere around 40 pages ish. And our clients who oftentimes barely can use a cricket phone, a flip phone, are signing on a tablet. And the great thing with DocuSigns, we can see it takes them 29 seconds to a minute, minute and a half to read and sign this contract. And they never get a copy of it. It's usually obtained later on. If you've ever bought solar panels, it took me 3 weeks to get mine because they're not immediately available. You got to get a permit and you've got to go through Edison to get a permission to operate. Well, these panels are dropped the next day. They're put on the roof within a few days. There's never a permit. There's never a permission to operate, and they're never tied into the electric grid. They're literally just panels plopped on the roof. Now, is that real estate fraud? No, it is not. It is solar panels are a fixture. They're secured by a UCC1. And should that person ever want to, and they're exorbitant price, should they ever want to say take a reverse mortgage? It's an encumbrance on the home, but it's not recorded against the deed. And should they ever want to sell the home? It's an encumbrance. And it's oftentimes ridiculous. The client has got an electrical bill of $100 or less. They're somehow convinced they need solar. It is an exorbitantly priced system. Sometimes it includes, dual pane thermal windows. We've actually seen clients who had dual pane windows and had worse or cheaper windows installed than what they took out. But you get a 12.99% contract on a $75,000 solar system, which doesn't work and is probably only worth about 20 at best. And it's on a 25-year loan. The repayment on that one for that client was $225,000 at its end. Yeah, CSLB works, and we work with them through APS, and we have ways to deal with it. I do, as I said earlier, we cannot be the all-inclusive legal services organization. And there we work closely with housing and economic rights advocates. They're statewide. And I also work with them as part of the California Low Income Consumer Coalition, because they're trying to get legislation passed to tamp down on these home improvement scams. And oftentimes, after a period of time, they're able to have the contracts rescinded. But it's important to point out, for every client that I can talk about, there's at least 10 or 12 minimum that go unhelped, that are paying. And one gentleman had an SCE bill of, what was it, well over $1,200. He couldn't afford that. These are folks that they own a home, their taxes are low because of Prop 13, and they can live on their Social Security of $1,100 to $1,400. Maybe there's two of them. Maybe they've got a little bit of money tucked aside, but life is comfortable and until they get a bill. And they certainly cannot afford the monthly payment from this scam solar or whatever. So now they're in the collections if the debt is sold, or maybe they have these encumbrances that need to be paid off. The debt is securitized and sold. And I think people are just waiting because ultimately you wait a little time, 12.99% interest, not a bad return on your money. The good news is they can't foreclose on the home. Um, Another one of my favorite hated topics is DPOAs, durable powers of attorneys or powers of attorneys. Let's just be clear. I hate these things. I hate them in the military and I hate them now because oftentimes they are written as check off the box, all inclusive, when they should be, earlier before everyone tuned in, we were talking about, performing surgery with a meat cleaver. A POA is kind of like that, but you should use a scalpel. If you need PACE program administrators, the PACE program is a massive problem. PACE is a program that started well, but was a train wreck in California. And my colleague Steph at Public Counsel has led the charge to get rid of PACE. PACE should never have been allowed in California. It has triggered Prop 13 reassessments where people cannot afford their homes, and PACE has led to the loss of housing for seniors on a catastrophic level. The PACE administrator, they're trying. Let's just say that. We're trying to get a PACE program. PACE, okay. If you're meaning PACE medical, a completely different thing, but that's important to note. I'm here talking about legal problems. Somebody brings up PACE without clarification, and that is a challenge because the PACE administrator deals with home improvement scams, or it deals with home improvements that turned out to be scams that was massively abused in this state. So let me go back to POAs. POAs can and should be used when they are necessary, but I'll give you an example. A lady trusted her neighbors, and she was going to have surgery. She was going to be under general anesthesia and spend a little time in the hospital. She granted her neighbors a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney. Uh, yeah, yeah. PACE, property assessed clean energy. The chat is killing me because we're back to that. It's a horrible program. Anybody want to talk about it? Give me a call. We'll talk further. POAs. The little old lady gave her neighbors a durable power of attorney because she needed somebody to care for her cat. It was her companion in the home that she owned. She went in the hospital. That power of attorney was used to find a strip mall doctor who over medicated her, put her in a facility. They sold her home because that's what needed to be done. We cannot track the $750,000. We don't know where her cat went. And fortunately, that POA was written in a way that she could reclaim her capacity. Now, it's important to point out under the probate code, doctor, there are two triggers for capacity. There is a medical trigger when a doctor says, in the easiest one, you're in an accident, you're rolling on a gurney, you're unconscious. The doctor says, I need to give you life-saving treatment. You don't have the capacity to consent, and the doctor gives that to you. Certainly allowed under the probate code. And that's the one example. The second capacity determination is a legal determination based upon admissible evidence. So we often see clients in the gray area. Well, the doctor can treat you. A strip mall says doctor says you don't have capacity, but you're never going to go to the probate court. You're never going to be conserved because if you don't have capacity, you should be conserved. Because a lot of people think, well, I have a power of attorney. A power of attorney enables people to do things for you. It doesn't mandate them like a conservator can. So I can have a power of attorney over, say, my grandmother, and that allows me to treat her. And depending on how it's written, It allows me to make certain medical decisions or withhold certain medical. I could say, no, I want her to have that med. I don't. But if I want to take a trip to Aruba, grandma's on her own because I'm not legally obligated. I don't have to care for grandma. It just gives me the ability. It also gives me the ability to sell off all the grandma stuff. Now, all of my actions are supposed to be for her benefit, but what we see is people saying, I need to sell grandma's home, and then I'm going to go to Aruba myself. So DPOAs that include a clause that I call the contract with yourself, where if in a POA or a DPOA, I say if two doctors or one doctor determines I lack capacity, then this POA becomes durable. That's what happened in that lady's case. Somebody reported her to Adult Protective Services, and we were able to, and the ombudsman, by the way, and we were able to work with her to revoke the POA and make the bad person go away. That was great. She regained her life because she certainly didn't need to be conserved. But she then had to track down her cat, which was the start of everything, and where the proceeds from her home went. And that's where we get a woman that was well established in life. She worked her whole life too. Now we're having to find her a place to live. And when we do find a place, how does she pay for it? So, and then my last point, residential care facilities for the elderly. These are places, keep in mind, I always see the worst. So there may be great places, but I will tell you, I don't see them. And even in these large residential care facilities for the elderly, I have seen the worst. I have seen, at its extreme, a woman, there is a referral, the community care licensing, the place that is supposed to care for or protect residents' rights. Now, the ombudsman is the one that goes in. CCL is the one that's supposed to, has the authority to cite these facilities. At its extreme, a complaint was made that the woman was not being fed and she was not being cared for. We were able to later on, independently of CCL, confirm that the cook was instructed not to feed her. Now, this is a large home, 125 bed. So when her body was found, she had maggots in her mouth and she was extremely malnourished. So protecting the rights of our seniors through either the ombudsman or CCL is problematic. In that particular case, I know of that client because of reading the report that was done 757 days after the complaint. It noted that she died 389 days. And that point was made in the report because the LPA, the informal investigator, was unable to yeah, I'm gonna mess up Utsumi. I yeah, I see the worst, folks. And I'm coming to you because are these legal problems? They are because they're abuse of our seniors and they're a violation of their rights. And here, CCL, I will tell you, as recently as yesterday, I got into it with CCL, the Elder Abuse Forensic Center. So if we want to go to the next slide, I can talk a little bit about it. That's the third point. But one of the other points we were talking about, so let me pause from RCFEs and go in order of the slides. Unsafe discharges. Even hospitals cannot say, we're done treating you, leave. But unfortunately, it does occur. And we've recently had a case where a gentleman lost his wife. Now, she had mental health issues and she wandered. She didn't have any ID. She left the home. And I know that is also an issue that's encountered with some of our community that are children that are autistic or suffer from mental health issues, and they wander and they are found and they don't know what to do with them. And she was essentially brought to a hospital on the 5150. She was admitted, she was cared for, and then the hospital released her. They put her in a Uber and they dropped her off, and she wandered again for several days. And she was found, and her husband. Now, keep in mind, she had a family, she had a home, she had everything she needed. And yet, this particular hospital just simply released her because it costs too much money. Some hospitals are good. We get hospitals that come to us at the Elder Abuse Forensic Center and say, hey, look, we don't have a program to house these people, but we understand we can't just kick them out. It's $2,000 a day for a bed or $1,000 a month for an RCFE. Pardon me, for a room and board. A room and board. Can you help us find better housing? So some hospitals get it. The one particular hospital I'm referring to, and I'm not going to use names here, years ago they were nailed for turfing on Skid Row, so they got it, and they're doing better. Not everybody is there. But when we talk about failure to provide care, and I was talking about RCFEs, we've seen people with sepsis, open wounds, maggots in their wounds. And yes, just this week, I've had a client that passed away through the negligence of and the failure to care through an RCFE administrator. And that's the next one. We encountered this individual through an illegal eviction. And one of the ways I work is through coalitions. Canner, California Association for Nursing Home Reform, was the first one to get it. And they called me because they know I'm down here. I called the ombudsman. We needed some help from the police in Hemet. I called the city attorney. This was all taking place in the parking lot of my kid's orthodontist on a conference call to resolve the problem, because problems don't come when you have time. Problems come when they need to be fixed. We were able to call the police, the city manager's office, walk down the hall, told the officer, this is the story you're going to get, but this is the reality. That person was told to let the person into their home. It was in the 40s in Hemet. It was at 6:30 at night, and we got him in. But unfortunately, the resident had already been skipping dialysis treatment because he was afraid of not being readmitted. Now, through the work, I will say, through the work of Canner, my office, they're an outstanding organization. My office, and yes, IEHP, we work to find a home, but sometimes alternative housing isn't when you need it. We knew where this person was going, and we needed a little bit of time. And I think I jinxed the client, because in those conversations we have afterwards, I said to my colleague at the ombudsman, we did it. We actually presented it to the Elder Abuse Forensic Center as a good example of collaboration. And I said, as long as the administrators would kill him before we get him a new home. And we only needed a week or two. I think it was like 2 weeks. But in that time, he continued to skip because she continued not to feed him. And he continued to be fearful. And he went into cardiac arrest and he died in the intensive care. I can't give you the medical terminology, but essentially his body didn't work because he was skipping dialysis. So he had rights. And a good news story went to a bad news story in just amount of time. But it's how the system's supposed to work. Our seniors, did he have rights? Absolutely. He absolutely did. But it takes us. Was the eviction illegal? Could I have defended him had it gone to that? Yes, he did. But we should avoid those problems beforehand. And that's through collaboration. And the overcrowding. If you're not familiar with Wilma's Rubin board, she's an infamous or notorious, however you want to call it, slumlord. Ben, you have a question. You're probably going to tell me I'm running out of time.
No, Ernie, was going to mention, if we could leave some time for discussion. We typically don't do long discussions towards the end, but these stories have just moved
Ben,
me. Can
that's
you hear me?
why I'm out. I have 1 point to go. I have some resources that will be on
Fantastic.
the board, and then go for discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wilma's Room and Board, just figure it out. These are developmentally delayed or developmentally disabled individuals that can't really stand up. There's a closet where their meds sometimes go. They had a strip mall doctor come, Figure out how you do the math. 17 residents in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom. Nutrition was at times a hot dog in a day. That was it, a hot dog. So we were able to rehouse some of those folks. We were able to get some of those housed in a hospital. But that is through the kind of collaboration I'm talking about. Ben's point, there are a couple slides up here. We can go to the next slide. These are the resources. While you're looking at that and we start talking, there are 2 other places. California Rights Department, formerly DFEH, and HERA, Housing and Economic Rights Advocates. I didn't get them in the slide. If we go to, let's just get past the services we provide. You can go to our website. How to reach us is there. And the most important point is the resources, and go to the last slide because I'll make it all easy. No, the next one. Okay. You would think he's my emotional support, but he's just a pet. This is my phone number. For a lot of you that my cell number is out there, don't give it to clients. This is my direct office line. Give me a call. I'll walk you through anything, and I'm happy to collaborate. Questions?
Thank you, Ernie. I appreciate that. Again, we typically take some questions at the end, but I really wanted to make sure we all heard what you just said. Those stories are just so mind-boggling and touching, and just hopefully it steered us all to think outside the box and how we can work together. You know, the mission of the Inland Coalition on Aging, we're committed to facilitating systems change across networks and developing improved integrated care and service delivery of long-term service and support. Ernie mentioned it, you know, he can't do this on his own. He needs us, we need him, we need each other to facilitate better services. And so just wanted to throw that out there. One, allow you to ask questions, but 2, how do we work better at this? How do we improve these services and avoid and address neglect and abuse and all these things that are happening? We can't boil the ocean, but we can at least start right now. Questions for Ernie and or just thoughts on the topic?
This is Dakota. I have a question. So, for the most part, conservatorship is superior to the durable power of attorney? Then,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A DPOA is, as I said earlier, a power of attorney says I can do something for you. I can become you, Delota, but I don't have to be. I can literally leave you rotting. And we currently have that. I can leave you rotting in a home eating a hot dog. Now, that's not right. That violates my fiduciary, but I can go to Bermuda on your money. A conservatorship goes through the legal process. A judge receives medical evidence to determine your capacity, and then appoints a conservator who's got a legal duty and obligation to ensure that you're cared for. So yeah, very, very different. Now remember too, well, yes, power of attorneys, when used appropriately, are a bridge. And if you have a loving family member that you know is going to care for you, awesome. But it's not a replacement for conservatorship. And there are things that you're not going to be able to do under a DPOA medical wise. Remember, if I don't tell you you could do it in a DPOA, you can't do it. And there's some other challenges. Again, I give an entire hour-long discussion on them, but conservatorships are far superior, and they're the legal requirement.
thank you.
You bet.
Next question. Thank you, Dakota. Question or thoughts on the topic?
So I will say this until somebody raises their hand.
Sure.
One of the ways I work is it has to be collaboration, but I get phone calls from everywhere. I once gave a discussion that I thought would be 40 people. It's 293, and I left my cell phone in it. I get calls from everywhere. I got a call from HUD that night. I will talk to you about our clients because ultimately prevention is what I would like. Okay. And one last point on housing. Affordable housing we cannot rely upon private. None of my clients, and are going to build 100-unit housing complexes for low income. They're not. The cost of build nowadays is very close to market. So when I advocate for housing, well, there are some coalitions that do it, but government housing has to happen. Government housing has to happen because I have a horrible outlook on what's going to happen this summer. So think about this. You're 80, you've been evicted, you need meds. By the way, seniors in shelters, they don't work. They're abused, their meds are stolen, they don't work. Seniors can't live under a bridge or in a car in Palm Desert or Palm Springs or Desert Hot Springs. So do the math and figure out what a senior in a 105-degree climate, how long they're going to last. It is not going to work. We need quality, affordable health care. And that's a government issue, not like Chicago, not like New York, not the Taj Mahal. As I say to people, everybody deserves a place to live. Maybe not in my neighborhood. I live in a historic neighborhood, but we have to build appropriate homes where we can build them. Let's not fight neighborhoods that say you can't stick that 125 unit next to my, historic, I live in South Redlands where we have a lot of old homes, but North Redlands has a lot of open land. There are a lot of places. Joyce Reynolds from United Way. If I talk long enough, somebody raises their hand. Joyce, what's up? Don't be shy, or I'll talk to Kim.
Joyce
All
is not
right.
shy.
I wasn't raising my hand for you to stop talking. My question is, because I get this all the time, answering the phones for seniors. If a senior is evicted, I had this happen recently.
Sure.
She was evicted and they wouldn't let her get her belongings. Doesn't she have rights?
Good question. They do. And it's a challenge. So technically, when they're evicted, the eviction notice states it. Now, our seniors, the rights are right there, but they have 15 days to contact the landlord to recover their possessions. And you have that 15 days if you give a 30-day notice and leave something. There's a catch there that sometimes the landlords, especially when they're irked, if you're familiar with Park David Senior Apartments in Cat City, that place is great. Not really. They have 15 days, but say your rent's $30 a month because I use easy math, and you wait till day 10. The landlord can say all your stuff's in the reasonable storage value is $1 a day, so you have to pay me $10. So that's that challenge. Now, if you can't pay it, they can't. If it's above $700, they have to remove it, inventory, store it, and sell it. Okay. If it's below $700, and a lot of landlords, close their eyes and just chuck it. And unfortunately, that's more common. They throw their stuff. When I tell clients in that case, well, just go dumpster dive. And I know it's not great, but go get your stuff. But to your answer, yeah, they do have a right, 15 days. And it's posted on the eviction notice. And it's kind of like that, be proactive. It's too late to deal with the eviction, but it's not too late to reach out to the landlord. Now, I have certain challenges because I can't communicate with that manager because I know there's an eviction. I know they have counsel. I have to communicate with counsel. So one of the ways I get around it is I just go to APS and I have the APS worker go out there, and the APS worker can go one-on-one. And, because unfortunately some of the councils, they take forever to return the call. It's an ethical violation for me to talk to their client. So they won't return my call, but they will write an email to me saying you violated ethics. So that is a challenge, but we can work around it.
Ernie, we
Thank
could go
you.
on this topic. I love the presentation today. Very helpful. Thank you so much. If we could please give Ernie a virtual round of applause, appreciate it. I just want to end with this. I love this quote that says, "I cannot do all the good the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do." I cannot do all the good that the Inland Empire needs, but the Inland Empire needs all the good that I can do. Go out there and do something. We need action right now, especially. Please do something to improve aging well in the Inland Empire. Thank you once again, Ernie. Appreciate your presentation today. Thank you to everybody who joined. Because of time, I'm going to end fairly quickly, but we'll see you next month. Thank you. Please visit our website, inlandaging.org. Have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thank you, Ernie.